Hi, and welcome back to our Decoding AWS journey together. We at GlobalDots are unpicking the top 20 innovations of the last year. And if you missed the first part of this webinar, what are you doing? You need to go back and immediately watch that because you missed out on all the cool information that Ami is providing for us. And now it's time to pick up where we left off and jump in and see what are the next 10 innovations. So, Ami, take us there.
First of all, again, Nesh. So let's go to what is new regarding Kubernetes. So this year, GuardDuty have been connected to EKS, and there is a new service which called GuardDuty EKS Protection. It covers continuously and monitoring the profile cluster of EKS and the activity, especially it identifies malicious and suspicious behavior that represents threats to container workloads. So
it's sort of interesting and definitely something we knew that AWS was going to move into with the likes of Aqua Security and Wiz and Lacework and other tools that are in this area of EKS protection. What's the benefit over using AWS, or are they late to the party on this one? What's your feeling?
I think that this service is just on his beginning. We see that, as we can see in the next slide, actually, we see what kind of logs or activities it currently takes or get from Kubernetes. They are generic one. It's something that you can find by yourself, but using GuardDuty, you will see them centralized. It is not something which is similar to Aqua and Wiz and Orca, which are much more enhanced and look at your entire cloud infrastructure, including servers, including Lambda functions, including everything. It's only related to Kubernetes and the data that you can get from Kubernetes.
Makes sense. And it does sound like I would say a basic level, let's say basic level protection if you're in the world looking for EKS, but very nice. Seems that GuardDuty will continue to grow as time goes on.
As we can see, there is a lot of investment on security-related applications and services, and I believe that we will continue to see this also in the next year. And we will discuss about the next year probably at the end of this session. Mm-hmm. So again, we continue with notifications. AWS helps us with centralizing a view of notifications from different AWS services and across accounts and across region into a centralized console of notification. We can configure different delivery channels like email, like chats, like Slack, all the channels that we are used to at the moment. And we, of course, can aggregate multiple events to reduce the number of notifications that we receive at the end of the day.
So most companies will be very familiar with something like PagerDuty and Slack integrations with most third-party softwares. And email notification has been a standard feature of any piece of SaaS software or any other piece of software for that matter for a long time. What are some of the main benefits of having this AWS notifications in comparison to everything that came before in terms of PagerDuty and Slack and all that?
So if you are new to AWS, if you're a startup company, you wouldn't like to integrate a lot of systems into your, let's say, new data center, your own data center on AWS. If you want to avoid it, so you definitely can use this service as for a beginning. and go on with that. It covers many of AWS services like Route 53, like CloudTrail, like VPC, and it gives you alerts about security threats and vulnerabilities. And as a basic or even a mid-level system, I think it would be great.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So people new or building something in a startup way, I would say, or looking to stay a bit cost effective with those integrations, this is a nice thing for those guys.
Yeah, let's see a visual of how it should be look like. Okay, Nesh, so here we can see a visual of how it looks like and watch how it works internally in AWS. We see the publisher and then the bridge, and then how it sends the user the notification via which channels. And as we said, it should be a basic or even a mid-size great service for beginners and for even a bit more advanced users. And only then you can decide if you need even more enhanced service than that one.
Nice, lovely feature for startups, and yeah, we definitely like the sound of that.
Okay, let's move on to the next subject, which is RDS. What are the new services or new features that AWS released this year regarding RDS? And I must tell you, the first one is real exciting for me. It is necessary, it is the right thing in the right time. As you know, databases have been always, let's say, the weak point of any upgrade. You can do an upgrade to your application if it's not involves the database, means there are no changes to the database, the upgrade would be non-disruptive. But if there are changes to the database, then you need, first of all, to run an upgrade procedure on the database, and it means that this operation gonna be with, I don't know, a nightly job or some stop of the service in order to do the job. Now, even if you did that, you are not sure that your upgrade will gonna run smoothly once it is released to production or once the system is being started in productions. I've used to do such jobs in the past, and you always have, let's say, a continuity plan or a rollback plan. Means what are we gonna do in case only part of the data will be corrupted or we won't see it? Does we gonna handle it on production or are we gonna do rollback? The other problem with it is that if you're gonna do a rollback, actually you have lost data, right? If the system is already released into production, you just lost your data. So actually, the continuity plan should be very robust, and you should know probably how to do it without doing the rollback. The rollback is the most, is the hardest thing to do because you are losing data.
So this is, I agree, a totally amazing announcement, because having worked in technical operations and infrastructure, well, many years ago now, unfortunately, but in the past, it's always been an enormous pain point, the database migration. So yeah, that's going to be great news for anybody who's involved in that world. Any limitations on that? It's now available for all RDS, or there's a particular fleet or instances? What's the availability of this?
Yes, it is now available for all. As we can see, you can have your original or your current database, which is working in the production environment, and the new one that you want to replace it in the staging environment. And then AWS will do the job automatically of switching off between those two databases, moving the production one to some, let's call a stage or stage 2 environment, while moving the new one to production environment. And while doing that, you can test, you can do all the job that we just discussed, and then only to release it. It's much safer to do it that way. And as we spoke, it brings us a solution to many pains that we have in the past, that we had.
Awesome. Very, very game-changing announcement. And any database nerds that are listening out there, you should definitely be aware of that one. That's going to save you a lot of time and effort.
I wouldn't talk only to database nerds. I would to anyone who handles any application which has database, he should be aware of that.
Well, all application nerds should be paying attention. So that's a nice one.
Yeah. Okay, let's proceed. Another very, very important announcement. As you know, last year, AWS introduced the DevOps Guru, which means an AI and machine learning based notifications that are being sent to you or alerting once AWS recognizes something within your servers or within your environment. Due to AWS big experience with its own environments, they need to do that. This year, they released the DevOps Guru for RDS. It's something similar if you if someone over there knew the profiler of Oracle, which once you are getting into troubles or something is wrong with your databases, most of the times you can ask the profiler of Oracle, what should I do? And he's telling you, first of all, go to this table and add an index. Go to the other table and add the primary key, etc., etc. And then you see that most of the times it balances your environment, your database, and it works for you. Many times it solved very, very critical issues. So AWS doing the same. It releases a DevOps Guru, a machine learning-based capability that helps you to quickly detect and diagnose a variety of database-related issues in Amazon RDS.
Again, this is from my own experience. I know this is a very cool announcement. And typically, companies, there is not a DBA as a database administrator in most companies. So getting insights on that has always had to be provided by a tool. And in the past, SolarWinds had a tool that was quite nice in the past to investigate on this. But it makes perfect sense that you get this this machine learning provided to you from Amazon. And yeah, it's a bit of a common database joke that the answer is an index. Whenever there's a performance problem, the answer is an index. So yeah, that's
or in a corrupted index.
Or a corrupted index. Again, very cool. I mean, for infra guys, database nerds.
Let's see some metrics that we can get from the DevOps Guru. So we can see here a database which is working. And we see that all of a sudden there are spikes over here. We can see that they started. I need to put my glasses on so I'll see the time. They started at 3 o'clock or at 2:32 actually. And we want to understand why the database load just jumped 4 times higher. So let's investigate it a bit. And we see that there is the recommendations. We see, first of all, the analysis of AWS DevOps Guru and the recommendations. Now, we both know, even if you are an expert database, an expert DBA, it will take you a long time to understand what's going on. While here, you get the data you say it, immediately. You get the data immediately, and you can start doing fixing the issues accordingly. And most of the times, let's say 90% of the time, I believe that you will get it all corrected by doing that.
Super nice. And as again with the blue-green deployment, really good for anybody who's database nerd or infrastructure nerd, application nerds. Much like we both used to do in our jobs, this would have been a lifesaver maybe like 5 years ago for me. So very cool.
I remind you that nowadays there are much less DBAs that there have been before. And the DevOps guy, or I don't know, even the cloud engineer is in charge of everything. And he doesn't have this entire information or entire knowledge and experience. So I believe that AWS is trying also to help those guys, which are not necessarily an experts of databases, to go through such issues. Means we are not calling on only the database nerds, we're calling everyone.
Calling all nerds, which is
all nerds are there.
All the nerds out there.
Yeah. So we talked about, let's say, the core cloud services till now, which let's say they are part of a system and IT and DevOps. Now I would like to tell you a bit more of general applications that have been added to AWS. And I believe that part of the customers find them very useful for them. AWS supply chain. So first of all, AWS probably is the biggest organization on earth that can tell us about how you should manage your supply chain, because it has Amazon, which is the biggest reseller worldwide. And as we can see while traveling in the US, all the tracks of Amazon, not many people understand how complicated it is to run such an organization with so many warehouses and know in which warehouse something is missing or it is reaching the critical threshold point, and what should we do when it reaches this critical threshold point. You know, it is a complete, I would say, a science. We know that Tim Cook is an expert of the supply chain, and that's why he doubled, tripled, and quadrupled Apple's sales. And the same here, AWS provides us with a complete application to manage our supply chain. If you are a small or even a medium company and you don't want to buy an ERP application and to customize it by yourself, you get AWS supply chain service, which can do that for you, which shows you the levels in each of your warehouse. We see that here in the warehouse, probably something is already missing, and when you can drill down and see what is missing, and etc., etc. Very interesting service, to my opinion. I definitely, if I was a big company, I would consider using it.
So makes quite a lot of sense. It's not the usual kind of AWS service that we would expect, actually. It's usually vast majority of things that AWS do is around web technologies, and this is really getting into hardware, if you like, or tracking physical items a lot more. You mentioned that you can plug into your existing ERP systems, so I would expect this to be a full ERP system on its own. But for those people who have an existing ERP system, how's that going to help them? And what providers can handle this AWS supply chain?
You know how it works, right? You're starting with this system, and then you are you become an addict, And I believe that AWS down the road will add more and more capabilities, that this service will come very dominant if they will see that there is enough, of course, use of that service. So it definitely will become dominant in the market.
Very cool.
But I liked your comment about it, that is not a usual service that we would like to see in AWS, in AWS or in Amazon. And I believe that we will see more and more services like this, and I will show you some more right now. We will continue to see kind of, let's call it, applications that are being added to AWS as a built-in application that any customer can use it. So let's move on to the next one. Amazon Connect. Amazon announces AWS complete contact center solution as part of AWS services. So we just spoke about TRP. Now you can completely open a contact center based on AWS services. You don't need to buy the main switch. You don't need to buy the IVR. You don't need to buy your CRM system. Everything is here.
Wow. So you're looking at basically a complete system for people to run support desks and support whatever they're doing, basically, whether it's a software company or a hardware company, including, assuming people working from home. So they're using IP telephony and things like that. So supports a remote workforce as well, I guess.
Exactly. Please pay attention that there is a voice ID also as part of it. Once it was, like 2-3 years ago, it was an add-on service that would cost you a lot to detect some fraud calls or risk for customers to leave you. And now you have it as part of the service. There are forecasting if you need to forecast shifts or sales or things of that nature for your contact center. It is part of the system. As I mentioned, you can classify the sentiment, the trends of your conversations. It is amazing. It is a full-blown application for handling a contact center.
And who should look at this? It's obviously for people who don't have something existing, but people who used to have something. Cisco would be the famous one, made exceedingly famous by always being in every episode of 24 at some point. But the Cisco solution is, can you see this being a replacement entirely for that?
I believe it might be. I didn't search enough to see how big companies are already use it. We can look for that information as well. And I assume that, again, it will be a growing service of AWS. I remind you that AWS releases applications or feature based on a need, on a very, very deep insights that they get and the researches that they are doing. They won't let us have here just application to tell that they are over there. They tend to that people will use it, and I believe that also big organization will get into that. Let's see, by the way, what we have on the free tier. If you want to get into that system today, what you will get on the free tier level, it's amazing.
Wow. So I don't think we'll go through every bullet point there, but if you're interested, you can pause the webinar and have a look. But yeah, it's a very, very large offering, and definitely, that's gonna, to quote you, Ami, that's gonna get people hooked on the AWS drugs for sure. So. Absolutely. That's
see, it's 19 days free usage of Connect for forecasting, for capacity planning, for scheduling, 100 tasks per month with the Connect task, and 1,000 profiles per month. It's absolutely mind-blowing. And then the trends that we talked before and the sentiment, everything is in here. So once you are trying that, you are hooked. as we know, you just need to convince them to do the POC, and then the next is history.
So now we've got people doing supply chain management on AWS, and their contact center is in AWS. What's next?
Pay attention to this. Amazon Clean Rooms. Amazon Clean Rooms actually is a very interesting solution, which is actually, you can't understand how we did it before. So let's imagine you are a big company like Walmart, okay? And there is some advertising company coming to you and wants to advertise to a specific audience. Let's just, for the sake of this conversation, let's say that the advertising company, let's call it AP or AG, in Ganesh. And the advertising company tells them, listen, I have a big customer that wants to reach people who is doing sports. And we want to know how many of them are in your, or how many of them do you have as a customers, okay? Now, Walmart has its own database, but it has the entire customers of Walmart, probably classified already into those groups or whatever, but they will never, as a CISO, the CISO will never let Walmart share their database, their complete database with someone else. Impossible, right?
Makes perfect sense. So
what
it's
should we do? In this case, we should try to cut off or create a copy and cut off the entire customer and get only the relevant customers inside. And then if we want to manipulate it on top, so it's another time it's a problem. So first of all, we created a copy, then we're trying maybe even to take off some data or mask some data even in this copy, because we don't want to share, let's say, the credit card or the where does he live, only the city and things of this nature. AWS provides this now, that capability directly on your databases, and it is create a level on top of it, a layer on top of it, which lets you connect with other companies and lets you share the same data.
So what we're talking about basically is ability to share information in a safe, contained way between two organizations. Using the example of Walmart or someone like that, but I would imagine that this is also going to be specifically useful for anybody who wants to share any sensitive data. And that could be healthcare data, that could be banking data, any personal identifiable data. My guess is here as well that it stops the different parties from being able to make mistakes, because typically when you see data breaches, and you see a lot of data breaches online million even Uber and Microsoft leave a database open to the internet with 100 million resources in there, million contacts in there, that gets leaked out. So I guess you're leaving that responsibility to secure the data to AWS so that you don't have these mistakes.
Yeah, amazing. Another amazing capability that has been added to AWS. I guess you want much more, but this is most likely the end.
Great. That's 20 innovations that are from AWS, from software-driven security, supply chain, databases, lots of things we covered there. Totally amazing, including some surprise ones, moving into areas where we don't usually see AWS. Ami, you're following this more closely than probably anybody I know. What are some of the predictions you think we're going to see coming out in the next 12 months? So I imagine there'll be something around machine learning and AI because that's all that anybody wants to talk about at the moment. But what are your feelings about the direction of AWS at the moment and what we're going to see?
So you were exactly right. I think that the AI and machine learning are gonna explode, and we will see it in the next reInvent announcements at the end of the year. That's gonna be the big announcement, and we're gonna have a lot of announcements around AI and machine learning. I assume we're gonna continue to see more and more dashboards and centralized data or monitoring or alerts, as we saw here. Means an aggregation of several services that now we know, or today we know, that there is some relation between of them, and we should see them in one dashboard. Security, 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 it's obvious. We're going to continue to see things around security, and of course, cost savings, more machines that bringing you a better price performance than the ones that we already see in AWS. That's gonna be my prediction for this year. Big announcements.
I'm totally with you, and I think my feeling around the machine learning is that we're going to see off the shelf packages that even inside AWS. So less and less skills will be needed to train machine learning and AI tools. I think we're going to see, slowly but surely, just the invention of just give us a data set and tell us what you want out of it, and they're going to manage that completely on the back end. And the automation side and the cost saving is always entertaining, let's say, because you secretly know that AWS don't really want to help you reduce your cost, but they'll do a good job in pretending that's the case so that you keep spending even more money with them.
No, I must tell that I do not agree with this last sentence. Even from my own private experience, AWS gives you a lot of services, and sometimes if you're not a pro, it is confuses you, and that's the reason why companies spend so much on AWS. We know it even internally, that if you was sharp enough and you could have done or set up the system good enough, you probably wouldn't spend so much money. The problem is that now every company or some engineer that finishes just university thinks that he is an expert of AWS. Once this is the situation, then you can spend a lot of AWS. And by the way, they would be considerable. And if you'll show them that it is by mistake, they probably will refund you.
So that takes us to the end of our 2-point decoding AWS journey. We've explored lots of innovations there, and special thanks to Ami for guiding us on the journey. Be sure to contact us if you want to keep up to date with the latest developments, cloud initiatives. There'll be constant new announcements that we won't be able to keep up with. So be sure to follow GlobalDots. Ami, any closing remarks there?
No, I was happy to be here today and share our knowledge and experience with our audience. And I hope to have another session soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Ami, and thanks for watching.